ये सीधे चलते हैं जयपुर, जहां पर राष्ट्रपति प्रणब मुखर्जी आतंकवाद निरोधी सम्मेलन 2016 को संबोधित कर रहे हैं।
On democracies are attacks against fundamental values of liberty, freedom, and universal brotherhood. Terrorism is a global threat which poses an unprecedented challenge to all nations. No cause can justify terrorist acts. It is imperative that the world acts in unison against terrorism without political consideration. Therefore, there is a need to take a resolve to not justify terrorist means, whatever be the reason or the source. Till the end of the 20th century, terrorism had a regional and national connotation. With the emergence of first Al-Qaeda, now IS, these boundaries have shattered. Non-state actors are trying to be the state themselves, spreading radical ideologies across societies, using technologies to the fullest extent to attract youth. In such a scenario, mere political and military strategies will not suffice. We need to take a social, economic, religious, and psychological aspects into consideration. I am sure the distinguished delegates of the conference in the next 2 days will deliberate on it. In the history of terrorism, the terrorist attack on the United States on September 11, 2001 is certainly a watershed moment. That moment defines the genesis of modern-day counter-terrorism in the international context. From the single incident have flowed most of the interventions in the counter-terrorism sphere that we see happening in the international level, as also at the regional and domestic levels. Faced with the spectre of terrorism, the Western world has undertaken a lot in terms of strategy and tactics and has achieved results also. We need to carefully examine and learn lessons from the success and failures of these strategies. We may at the same time do well to remember that South Asia has been facing terrorist violence since decades in various forms. There is a peculiar nature to this terrorism. To counter that, South Asian countries, including India, have developed certain capabilities. We need to similarly discuss and deliberate on the effectiveness of these strategies and how these have impacted on our counter-terrorism capabilities. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, an important aspect of counter-terrorism strategy is capacity building to prevent attack through intelligence correction and coalition, development of technological capabilities, raising the special forces and enactment of special laws. Though we have evolved certain mechanisms in this direction, there is scope for further intensifying these efforts. Counter-terrorism is generally considered to be about tactics, weapons, force levels, and intelligence gathering. While these things are important, the predominant focus has to be on the political management of terrorism. This includes addressing issues of ideology and dealing with countries that sponsor or support terrorism. It is imperative that the world in one voice rejects all manifestations of terrorism without distinction and proscribe states that support or sponsor terrorism as an instrument of state policy. We cannot also forget the fact that civil society is both the frontier and the battleground which has to be protected and saved. Fragmentation of civil society rather than its consolidation is not a wise strategy. The former course leads to radicalization, which thereafter leads to competitive violence. Think tanks and civil society organizations have a larger role to play in the process of social integration. A pluralistic and inclusive society like India, where right now when I am speaking before you, there are 1,600 dialects, more than 100 languages used in day-to-day life, 7 religions, all 3 major ethnic groups, Mongoloid in northeastern India, Caucasians in north and northwest, Dravidians in southern part of India, yet they are governed, united under one system, under one constitution. And because of the fact we celebrate pluralism, we allow space to develop and to find out identity within that space, to my mind, is very important. It is for this reason that global terror outfits have not been able to find traction in India. We have as a nation.
ये था सीधा प्रसारण जयपुर से, जहां पर काउंटर टेररिज्म कॉन्फ्रेंस 2016 को महामहिम राष्ट्रपति प्रणब मुखर्जी संबोधित कर रहे थे और इसमें अफगानिस्तान के चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव अब्दुल्ला भी इसमें की नोट देंगे। अपने संबोधन में राष्ट्रपति प्रणब मुखर्जी ने कहा कि दक्षिण एशिया जो कि दशकों से आतंकवाद के विभिन्न स्वरूप से दो चार हो रहा है, झेल रहा है, उसके लिए दक्षिण एशियाई देशों को एक साथ मिलकर और खासकर भारत को अन्य देशों के साथ मिलकर एक साझा रणनीति और साझा कदम उठाए जाने की ज़रूरत है। साथ ही साथ राष्ट्रपति ने यह भी कहा कि क्षमता निर्माण, कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग, साथ ही साथ खुफिया तंत्र को ज़्यादा मजबूत बनाना, टेक्नोलॉजिकल अपग्रेडेशन, तकनीकी रूप से सक्षम बनाना और कानूनों में परिवर्तन करके आतंकवाद से लड़ने में उन्हें सक्षम बनाना कुछ ऐसे कदम हैं जिन पर विचार करके बेहतर तरीके से आतंकवाद के खिलाफ लड़ा जा सकता है। विश्व एक स्वर में आतंकवाद के सभी स्वरूपों की कड़ी निंदा करता है। साथ ही साथ उन्होंने कहा कि आतंकवाद को पोषित करने की नीति का भी साफ तौर से इसको डिस्कार्ड किया जाना चाहिए, इसकी उपेक्षा की जानी चाहिए। भारत जैसे बहुलतावादी समाज की प्रशंसा करते हुए उन्होंने कहा कि जहां पर विभिन्न भाषा, बोली, धर्म, जाति, प्रजाति और संप्रदाय के लोग रहते हैं, एक संविधान के एक छत्र तरीके से मानकर भारत का समाज एक ऐसी बहुलतावादी संस्कृति का परिचायक है जहां पर बहुलतावाद और सामाजिक समरसता है, क्योंकि हम बहुलतावाद का सम्मान करते हैं और आतंकवाद के सभी स्वरूपों से लड़ने में इस तरह की विचारधारा बेहद आगे आ सकती है।